Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another Walking Dead video from the Thrifty Typewriter. So I am continuing on with this retrospective series, which has been awesome, by the way. Going through each season, going over the good, the bad, what could have been done differently, how certain things could have been handled and stuff like that. So it's been really fun. So this one here is The Walking Dead Season 8, and it says, I lied. This season is worse. Since the last video I did was Season 7, saying Season 7 is the worst season of all, but apparently he thinks Season 8 is worse than Season 7. This will be interesting because I'm trying to remember what happened in the first half of Season 8. I don't really remember a whole lot of what happened in Season 8. I know, obviously, the beginning, they pulled up in the cars in front of Sanctuary and stuff like that. They shot out all the glass and stuff like that from, the comics and stuff. Negan and Father G, are in one of those RV camper homes trapped with the walkers outside of them. That's all I remember in the first half of Season 8. I thought the second half of Season 8 actually wasn't that bad. Because that's when we had, the final showdown between the Saviors and Rick and company. That's where all the guns, exploded and stuff like that. Rick cut Negan's throat. What else? I think there was a pretty cool car chase scene between Rick and Negan. And I think, didn't they go into a warehouse or something like that? And they were kind of fighting, and Negan lost Lucille. Rick picked up Lucille and then was using it to attack Negan with it. And I think he set it on fire too, which really pissed Negan off. I thought that stuff wasn't actually half bad. So, yeah, I thought the second half of Season 8 was pretty good. So it'll be interesting to see what his take is and why he thinks Season 8 is worse than Season 7. Like I said, I don't remember much in the first half, but who knows. Alright, so anyways, let's get on to the video. Here we go.
During my last video on the show, I said that Season 7 was the worst season of the show.
Alright.
The general consensus of the comment section was that yes, Season 7 is bad, but Season 8 is far worse. Now, I've already made a video on Season 8 called In Defense of Season 8, and when I made that video, I just watched that season. It wasn't on a rewatch or anything like that.
Okay, maybe I'll have to
with the rest of these videos, and having watched
maybe
the
I'll have to watch that video
on my
next.
binge of the series, I can agree, this season is actually far worse. Like I said, I already made a video talking about what I liked in Season 8, so if you're a big Season 8 defender, go watch that video, because in this video, the gloves are off, and I am going in on this season.
Okay, so maybe I'll have to watch that video after this one here, the defense of Season 8 then.
This was the show that I stopped watching. Season 7 just left a really bad taste in my mouth, and when this season came on, I went off to college, didn't have cable, and I just generally didn't care to watch the show anymore. The show just felt cheaper. The realism of this post-apocalyptic drama felt far too different with the inclusion of scenes like this, and no one dies. AMC was in absolute crisis management mode with this season because for the first time,
well, I mean, that scene
really
did happen in the
show's
comics,
history,
didn't it?
the show was pretty much universally disliked. Season 7 had terrible ratings and the viewership numbers were down, so they went in a different direction.
I just want to take another quick peek at that. Okay, Season 1, really good. Season 2, really good. Alright, some of the slow episodes. Season 3, still really good. I mean, still high 80s. Season 4, episode 12, low 70s. That's the only one. Everything else is 80s or above, so that's not too bad. Season 5, what have we got? 75. That's not bad. Season 6, 65. Yep, that explains that. That was the famous cliffhanger going into Season 7, though, a 91. So, I mean, yeah, I guess it did pay off. 56. Oof, what was that? Season 7, episode 6. I don't remember which episode that is. And this is the other only good one, which obviously was the mid-season finale. Low 70s, 66. Wow, 68, 66, 63, 61, 64. Still not too bad. I mean, season 7 does have a 56, and even season 8's worst episodes, 61 is still better than a 56. I mean, granted, yes, season 7 does have a 91. They got an 81 there. I don't know. We'll see.
Full ratings, and the viewership numbers were down, so they went in a different direction with the marketing for this season. The Comic-Con trailer, which I used to look forward to every year, was absolutely abysmal for season 8.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
One eternity later.
There was just no hype surrounding this season, which was astonishing because this was supposed to be the most action.
That's another thing I should do is go back and rewatch all the trailers.
And to its credit, it probably is the most action-packed, but when you have action that feels hollow and repetitive, you might as well just have an off-screen battle. This season promised more action, more guns, more deaths, but it didn't exactly work out in the show's favor. So prepare yourselves, season 8
Well, I mean, that's what I kind of expected, was just more battles. I mean, you're going to war, you expect
a lot more to say.
A lot of
I'm talking about the
battles to happen.
Worst season of The Walking Dead, season 8.
I expected a lot of firefights in that season and stuff, more skirmishes,
The first episode of the season is actually the show's 100th episode. There's some really cool callbacks and references to the first episode of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Carl instead of Rick. And I think that this is
I
a nice
remember
touch,
those.
so well done, season 8. It's also kind of setting up how Carl is going to be one day in Rick's position, alone and without his father. So I'm seeing this scene as a sort of intro for when Carl inevitably takes over as the show's main character. Anyways, the first several minutes are really
totally gonna happen
confusing the first time you're watching it. Rick is giving some speech to the people. He sees some glimmering tree in the distance, and then he's sweating and crying. Then he's by Glenn and Abraham's graves. Then he's an old man, and then he's back to the speech. And first-time viewers of this scene are lost on so many different levels. And not lost in the sense that you're like, whoa, I wonder what this means. Lost in the sense that you're just like, okay, what's going on here? Then we continue on, and that feeling doesn't end. There's so little context as to what's going on, the actual timeline of the episode, when we're in the past, the present, the future, or really what anybody is actually doing. We can gather that they're on some sort of planned out mission, but we don't know what this mission is, when all of this is happening, and this is just one of the issues that I have with this season, but it's a big one. And that's the editing. I'll touch more on that in a few minutes. Let's go to the group wasting all their bullets at the sanctuary. Rick stares down Negan, who's less than 50 yards away from him, starts shooting at him, cut to commercial. Then Negan just dodges these bullets and jumps out of the way. Okay, sure. Then everybody else continues firing.
Yeah, the commercials were...
What's the point of this? What if all these innocent people that they're trying to save were up in these windows? We didn't see any saviors poking their heads out.
Well, I mean, didn't
this
happen in the comics? So I mean,
an insert shot of like a rifle hanging out from the windows would have saved. Well,
kind of makes sense. I mean,
this is just a waste of ammo, right along with their coordinated gunfire salute or something like that they did earlier.
I mean, that was kind of cool.
Another huge issue with this season.
So I mean, I kind of get both sides. I mean, if it did happen in the comics, I mean, of course you want to try to do as much of what happened in the comics in the show, but in the practical sense, it's like, yeah, that was a complete waste of ammo and stuff like that. I mean, if it was to attract walkers and stuff like that, you could have drove around just honking horns.
Sure, there's lots of action, but the bullets only hit their targets like 5% of the time, honestly probably even less than that. When last season made such a big emphasis on the amount of ammunition that both sides have, and gave Eugene this elevated role because he knew how to make bullets, for over half this season, ammo doesn't seem to be even a slight concern for anyone. I mean, where do they... Oh, wait, Daryl actually gets a max ammo here. Never mind. The ending of the episode ends with another reference to the end of the first episode. That's all nice, but it also ends with even more timeline shuffling and confusing editing. I've talked a number of times about how my girlfriend is watching the show with me for the first time, and I could tell that she was just mentally checked out for this episode. She said that this was by far the worst episode of the show, and from what she has seen so far, I don't disagree. This first episode did not live up to the legendary episode 100 title that other shows have. This feels like an entirely different show.
Most shows now
Like
don't
this
even make it to
season had a
episode
different
100.
editor, or like it was just trying to be really different and really artistic indie movie vibes, and it doesn't come across well whatsoever. Now let's talk about this all-out war, one of the most important arcs of the comics and to this storyline overall. This season is at its best when the fight scenes aren't about the good guys taking down the bad guys, but when it shows the gray sides of this conflict and how the war really isn't good for anyone. All the yay, bam, bam, now look, the bad guys are dead scenes are insanely boring to watch, and unfortunately, that's most of the season. Scenes like Rick killing the savior that was ultimately just trying to protect his child is the type of shit that I wanted to see more of.
Oh,
Rick was
yeah.
all in on killing every
Gracie.
savior he came across, but seeing a father do everything he could, not to take out Rick, but to save his child, gives Rick second thoughts on his actions, and that's the stuff that's incredibly powerful to see. That's what this war should have consisted of. This is a dark
would've been
story
interesting.
about how humans react and treat each other in the zombie apocalypse. This is not a Marvel movie where the good guys and the bad guys are so clearly defined. This war should be horrific and traumatic. And while some moments in this season get this aspect right, the majority of the actual war is just bland action sequence after bland action sequence of our characters killing the saviors mercilessly and really without remorse. None of them have any sort of like PTSD from this war. Nothing is really treated with a big amount of weight behind it. This war just feels hollow. Morales comes back in the show. Woohoo! I can't wait to see
Yay!
what he's been up to. Oh, he's dead. No, but for real, I actually really enjoyed this episode and this aspect.
There
of
we
the
go, that
season.
shut everybody up
Again,
asking
it's
about
another
him.
side of how gray this conflict is. Even just ever so slightly for a few minutes. Rick tries to convince Morales to come back with him and that he's right, but just because they spent time with each other at the start doesn't really mean that they owe each other anything. Times have changed and allegiances have shifted.
That's
The
true, it's
saviors
been
were there for Morales when he didn't have
many,
anything.
many years.
He sees no reason why he should go and join Rick, even if he is ever so slightly standing on higher moral ground. Morales' life with the Saviors has been steady and safe until Rick started all of this, so from Morales' point of view, even though he spent time with Rick and liked him, he's the bad guy now. But what could
True.
have been an incredibly powerful storyline and message being told through his character, they just kill him off. Don't you guys think it would be better if we keep Morales around for a little while?
Don't matter. Not one little bit.
Ezekiel's character is an aspect that this season gets right. The episode Some Guy is actually really strong thematically and shows this aspect of war that is hard to deal with. Ezekiel thinks that his personality and his speech will be enough to overcome their challenge on the mission, and it turns out that his leadership and ability to get people
That was
so
a really
hyped up for
intense
this mission
scene.
ultimately leads them to their deaths. He's not a king, he's just some guy. Pair that with the death of his tiger Shiva,
Yep.
and this turns out to be a very metaphorical death for
And that's when the
Ezekiel
budget
that
just went,
changes it. I can't wait to see how this war changes other characters.
Once
'cause
Shiva died.
Surely other characters besides Rick are going to change too, right? In terms of the actual structure of the war throughout the season, it starts off with Rick and the group winning all of their fights, then the Saviors strike back, and by the mid-season, the Saviors are kind of on top. Then it goes back to Rick and the group on top, and then Rick going sicko mode with Morgan. The Saviors come back, and then heading into the final battle, the Saviors kind of have the upper hand until Eugene pulls off his party trick. I
Yep.
do like this back and forth between who's winning at what time. I just wish that there was a bit more nuance involved with this whole storyline. Now, before I get to the big aspect of the season, let's talk about Rick. On paper,
Okay.
this season has the best Rick Grimes character arc in the entire show. It starts out with him having literally no mercy, putting other people's lives in jeopardy just to try
Oh,
and land
yeah.
the final blow on Negan.
Savage Rick without the
realizing that he
jacket.
can't, and then taking a picture of what they've done, just like the Saviors did for Glenn and Abraham. To Rick, the Saviors
Assholes.
aren't people. They're the same as walkers, they just have guns now that don't hit their targets. Rick might as well be Cal Kestis, killing stormtroopers. Actually, you know what? Rick might as well be Starkiller, killing stormtroopers with how OP he is compared to the enemies around him. But then something
Such a good
happens
game.
at the mid-season that ends up changing Rick's mind. He avoids his grief and the message that his son was trying to share with them so that way he can continue his kill streak. But before he gets to drop a nuke, he ultimately realizes that Carl is right and he needs to honor the wishes of his son. He lets his emotions get the better of him again, but ultimately ends up sparing Negan. The grief and loss he's faced in this war, almost too much for him to handle. Now, saying all
I mean, it
of
was
this
kind of cool when it finally
makes
came
me
together
think
on
that
what
this
those
season
scenes
must
were.
have been really great because I love this arc for Rick on paper. I think that the execution is all right, certainly the best part of the season, but it's also not entirely present for most of the season. These Rick moments are few and far between, and when they happen, they're great, but it doesn't outweigh the rest of the horrible writing of the season. In a way, this season feels very much ahead of its time because this season very much feels like it was made to be binge-watched. And as a binge watch,
Yeah.
it's still bad, but it's not as bad.
Right,
But this argument
'cause
doesn't
you're not
really
waiting a
matter because
week
this
anymore.
was still a show that was released week to week. Even if most viewers of the show nowadays don't experience it that way, watching this season week to week was boring.
Yeah.
Same as season 7, but this
Kind of
went
like most shows now. I don't even watch most shows week to week. I just wait till they're fully out and then just binge watch them. There's right now, kind of surprised Apple TV is still doing a week to week shows. There's a show on there that I'm waiting for. Silo. I don't know if you haven't seen it, but it's a pretty interesting show. They're doing it week to week, so I'm not gonna. No, I'll just fucking wait until the whole thing's over, and then I'll just go through season 1 right all the way through season 2. You know, I got other shows to watch. I'm not gonna, start this show here and then I got to see what happens in this show. Let me jump over here to watch this episode and then jump back to this show here. No, just waiting. I do the same thing with Game of Thrones too. I waited until, ooh, there we go. Come on, camera, get back in. I waited till, what was it, season 2 of House of the Dragon finished, and then I just went right through season 1 all the way through season 2. I'll do the same thing whenever season 3 comes out, and then I'll just watch season 1 all the way through season 3.
In the opposite direction of season 7. There was so little action in season 7 and it was so slow that basically nothing happened. In season 8 you get battle fatigue because so much happens, but at the same time only a few things of importance actually happen. I talked about it a bit, but let's talk about the biggest enemy of the season, the editing. This season is edited horribly. It feels like it's trying to be very artistic and clever, but it comes across as laughably bad. I talked about the weird pacing and cuts in the first episode, but in episode 2 there's these weird close-ups of all the characters' faces for absolutely no reason, and it goes on for way too long. And then in the third episode we get these weird flashbacks that fade to black that happened moments before the scene that just happened. Just put these scenes in order. There's no suspense here just because you're bouncing back and forth between scenes that happened 5 minutes apart. The season is absolutely filled with these strange, creative editing choices, and they on absolutely no level work for me, even the tiniest bit. These choices are what made this season feel so different, especially on a binge
I can agree with
series.
that.
Season 7 was bad, yes, but it still felt like the same show. The season feels like it's a student project that had way too high of a budget. I bring up student project because let's talk about the other bad aspect of the season, the choreography. The fight choreography is absolutely atrocious. Some of these fight scenes last for hours in world when it was supposed to be a group of 24 people shooting at each other. Surely one of them would run out of bullets at some point, or one side would win. I'm saying that this is among the worst gun choreography in any major title I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm kind of
People
surprised
shoot
by that
bullets
too.
like the zombies will eventually drop a max ammo, and I'm not entirely convinced that they don't, because the amount of bullets they fire in this season, especially bullets that don't hit anything,
And I'm
is
kind of
laughable.
surprised with
All
that.
right.
Rick being a cop and stuff like that. Seeing him doing the, the chicken wing is kind of surprising too. He's a cop. You'd figure he would have learned that and then passed that on to everybody else he trained. But you see everybody else, so
It's time for the big conversation. The reason why Season 8 is often brought up in conversations of worst seasons, conversations of worst decisions that the writers ever made, and the reason why a lot of people stopped watching the show. And that's, of course, the death of Carl Grimes. I mentioned earlier that I think Carl's death does actually do something for Rick Grimes' character arc on paper, and the way that the story plays out, it does make sense. However, this was not the original plan for this season, and I can do everything I can to prove it to you without giving you confirmation on it. I've been alluding to this conversation for the past few videos now, so finally, I'm gonna get into it. Let's talk about Carl and his character arc up to this point. Carl's a kid who grew up in the zombie apocalypse. He didn't get the childhood that any of us watching had.
Right.
He was forced to grow up much quicker than literally everybody else around him.
Right.
So he did. He could handle himself when it came to walkers. He was more of an adult than any of the teenagers when they arrived in Alexandria. Going all the way to Season 7, when Carl quite literally risks his own life to go on a solo mission to take down Negan. That mission didn't work, but he was one of the primary factors for why Rick changed his mind and realized that he needed to fight Negan. He helped them get the guns from Oceanside and was prepared to fight Negan along with everybody else. And had it not been for a last-minute save from Shiva the Tiger, Carl would be a goner. By the way, this is definitely a moment that the show wants you to forget about, but make no mistake, Negan was going to kill Carl in this scene.
Oh, of course he
was.
was.
Happening to Carl, surely in season 8,
he may have liked Carl, but
more elevated feelings of killing the saviors and wanting to participate.
Yeah, he may have liked Carl and stuff like that, but all right, Rick is causing too many problems now. I don't care that I like your son. Yes, I like him. Do I want to do this? No, but does it need to be done if I need to, get you into compliance? Yes. If killing your son is what finally, brings you to heel, then gonna do it.
In this war. Well, that's not what happens at all. This character, who's been going down a dark path the entire series up to this point, and who just went on a solo mission of revenge the season prior, is now a believer in peace and how this war can be settled formally if they all just talked it out.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now this sounds an awful lot like the mindset that a different character had for a long time. And that character is Morgan. When Morgan was reintroduced in the show in Season 5, he was far different from the crazy man that we had seen the last time he was on screen. In Season 6, when Morgan became part of the main cast, he believed that all life is precious. He couldn't bring himself to kill the wolves, he couldn't go on the mission to the satellite station, and wanted to try and end this conflict before it even began by communicating with Negan and the Saviors. These are all traits that Season 8 Carl possesses, and this is because Morgan was supposed to be the one to die this season, not Carl. You see, something changed during the time between Season 7 and 8, possibly even earlier, but thematically, it would have made perfect sense for Morgan's character to be the reason why Rick would change his mind about Negan. Let's go back to the satellite station episode for a moment. Instead of going on this raid, Morgan stays behind in that episode. To do what, you ask? To build a cell. That will eventually house Negan for years. Later on in the season, Rick and Morgan have a great moment in the episode East, where Morgan makes Rick reconsider his whole I don't take chances anymore mentality, and it actually takes an effect on Rick in that moment. I believe this scene was here to set up the eventual change that Morgan's character would have on Rick after his
But this
death,
is when fear and
for Rick
stuff
to
was
then
happening,
see the
so
value in everybody's life. There was only one pretty small issue with Morgan's death having this effect, and that's the fact that Rick and Morgan weren't friends. This conversation that they have in Season 6 is one of the last conversations that they have in general. They're separated
Which is
for
kinda
most
sad.
of season 7, so when it came to writing season 8 with this plan that they had in mind, it wouldn't really make narrative sense for
See?
Rick to
Rick's
change
doing the
his
chicken
ways
wing.
just because
And he's a
somebody
cop.
he knew back at the start wanted him to change. Morgan returning to the story didn't really have an effect on Rick, and Morgan's entire journey in season 8 is about becoming a killer again, and then realizing that he wanted to get away from everybody. So where does he go?
Fear the Walking Dead.
Fear the Walking Dead.
And that's why he
I said
stayed
that
alive.
AMC was in crisis management mode going into the season, and it wasn't just because their ultra hit show was declining in popularity, it was because their spin-off show wasn't doing too well either. So with the story that they had initially outlined,
And still didn't do well.
Morgan dying to change Rick's mind, not working well on paper, they made 2 drastic decisions. Shipping Morgan over to Fear the Walking Dead in hopes that it would increase its viewership, and making Carl the death.
Yeah, it got a little bump, and then that was it. Oop.
Shipping Morgan over to Fear the Walking Dead in hopes that it would increase its.
Yeah, there's the Morgan bump, and then straight down. And of course, a bump up near the end of the season, bump up near the beginning of a new season, bump, 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 mid-season finale and stuff, bump, bump, bump. You know? I mean, it was pretty much plateauing. I mean, yes, you did have, your initial hype and stuff like that. Yeah, it did dwindle, a lot faster than expected, but it did seem season 3 is kind of where it was, kind of settling. It found its happy medium, if you will. Like this was probably going to be, the viewership range, going forward, which, yeah, I mean, it did a little bit, but then just started to
Viewership.
really start to drop, and then, yeah, season 5, it just completely collapsed even more. Yeah.
And making Carl the death that would ultimately change Rick's mind about the war with Negan. I think this is why Chandler Riggs and his family have come out and said that the actor felt blindsided by the decision to kill off Carl, because it really was last minute in terms of the
Same thing with
overall
Andrea.
storyline. Now, this decision could also have been made because of Chandler Riggs turning 18 and them not wanting to pay him as an adult. Many things can
What?
be true
AMC
at
not
once.
wanting to
Maybe
pay?
the producers and everybody behind the show felt that this was the perfect storm of events to raise viewership and fear, not have to pay one of their principal characters an adult salary, and service Rick's story in this season to make it flow more naturally. Except none of this worked out in The Walking Dead's favor. Everyone who watches Fear the Walking Dead says that anything after season 3 isn't really worth watching, so Morgan's presence really didn't help much there, and Carl's death didn't have the impact that they hoped it would either. For a lot of fans, this was truly when the show jumped the shark.
Because he sacrificed himself for a guy who didn't even live long. He lived, what, another season and a half? And then he was killed? It's like, wow, cool, you sacrificed a main character for this guy who just lived for like another season. Wow. You kind of would have figured if a main character sacrifices himself, herself, for you, you're kind of good, because, all right, we sacrificed a main character for you. You're kind of safe. No.
The final nail
Nope.
in the coffin that ended their love and viewership for a once great show. So that's it. That's what I think happened. I think that at first it was supposed to be Morgan who was going to die, and then that death would change Rick's mind about sparing Negan, because Rick would kind of adopt the mindset that all life is precious. But Morgan eventually abandons this whole idea in season 7, and then also Rick and Morgan aren't good friends anyway, so his death wouldn't really change Rick at all. So to make it make sense, they changed the big death of season 8 from Morgan to Carl. Maybe I've been hyping this up too much,
Plus,
but I've
Morgan
never
was a
actually
fan
seen
favorite,
anybody
too.
connect the
You know,
dots
I
in
liked
this sense
Morgan.
before. And to me, I think that it all makes perfect sense and aligns with everything that was happening in the show and this universe in general. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So yeah, season 8 is not very good. It feels like a completely different show. The editing and choreography are atrocious. Carl's death was the show's biggest misstep they could have ever taken.
Okay,
Despite a really great character arc for Rick, there's basically no other redeeming qualities. Solely for Rick's story in this season, I'll give season 8 a 3 out of 10. But yeah, I wasn't gonna subject my girlfriend to watch this entire season, so we watched a few important moments, and we're on to season 9, which is, thankfully, against all odds, a pretty great season of television. Alright, season 8.
Yeah, don't know what happened with Gimple, you know? I mean, lost his touch or what, you know? Because he gave us some really good seasons, but then I don't know. But yeah, I guess some of the editing was right. You know, some of the commercial placements were, I guess, pretty shitty too. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, there was still some pretty good. I'm kind of surprised they didn't get to some of the, pretty good moments. At least I thought. Shoot, I don't remember where it was, but Rick and Negan fighting and stuff like that. Like this area here when they go in here and stuff like that.
Rick going sicko mode with Morgan.
Once Rick is chasing, Negan into this building and stuff. This was actually pretty cool too, not gonna lie. I mean, visually, it looked awesome and stuff like that. I remember doing videos, filming update videos, if you remember that, on this here, getting all the footage of, people taking pictures and video of them filming the scene here, and it's like, oh, we got smoke rising from Alexandria and stuff like that, loud explosions going off, and people yelling and shouting. Good times back then, but yeah, like I said, some of the moments, I guess, were pretty good. Like I said, this whole area here was actually really cool, but yeah, still strange seeing Rick doing the chicken wing. You'd figure as a cop he'd bring that down. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said, maybe this season was meant to be binge watched, but even then, not that great. At this point, I don't know how shows are still doing. I mean, I guess on cable TV you kind of have to do it week by week, whereas a streaming service is different. It's a little hard to put out a show on like the USA Network and be like, all right, we're dropping the whole season on the USA Network. You got to watch from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. to watch the whole season. It's like it's a little, that's a little hard and stuff like that, and but yeah, I mean, it would have been cool to see. I don't know. I mean, I would have to go back and rewatch it because, like I said, it's been a long time since I've, watched any of these earlier seasons and stuff like that. So I don't remember, a lot of it, just what I've seen in, most of these videos and stuff like that. But yeah, the death of Carl, that totally sucked. It would have been interesting if it was Morgan that did die, although Morgan was fan favorite. I still like Morgan. I still want to see Rick and Morgan reunite once again, because they're basically some of the only last remaining OG characters. So would like to see them again. Yeah, I mean, some of the moments and stuff like that were a little, I don't know, I guess looking back at the editing and the jumps and stuff like that from this scene to this scene to this scene to this scene, that's all all over the place. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I thought this scene here was pretty intense, after everybody, they got ambushed and stuff like that, and they all dove to save the king, and they all died, and then the king being pretty much basically left all alone, and you know, just realizing who he is, you know. And then he just pretty much dropped the king persona and stuff like that. Yeah, the whole thing with Morales kind of, you know, it's kind of, but I mean, I get it, you know, enough time has passed. You know, it's been many, many years since they've seen each other, so, yeah, I mean, join the Saviors and stuff like that, so of course to them, you know, they think Rick and stuff is the bad guys. In our eyes, the Saviors are the bad guys to our group, so, yeah, I don't know, but, I mean, yeah, there was some good moments and stuff like that, but yeah, the editing, choreography and stuff like that was pretty gnarly. Carl's death, pretty shitty idea. I don't know if I say it's like a terrible season. I don't know if I give it a 3, maybe like a 5. I don't know, that's just me. But anyways, there we go. So there is season 8. Apparently the worst season. I'm gonna have to watch that video in defense of season 8, you know, to see what he says. I don't know if that's something I should have watched before watching this video or after, but either way, I'll still check it out anyways to see at least what he says about season 8 and stuff like that. Like I said, there was some like good moments and stuff, you know, so I have to see. But anyways, other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. Links in the description box below. And, of course, leave me all your thoughts and comments. What did you guys think about Season 8? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think the rating for Season 8 should be? Do you agree with him with it being like a 3 out of 10? Or do you think somewhere where I am, like a 5 out of 10? You know, just let me know. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to do a video going back and like watching all of the Walking Dead trailers. That'd be kind of fun, you know, after all these years, just watching like the original season 1 trailer, the season 2 trailer. Oh man, I haven't seen those in years. Whew. I think that'd be fun too. That might be another video I do. But, yeah, other than that, just stick around. More videos are on the way. And I will see you guys next time.